Casting. Initiate.
Initiated.
We're on.
We are on.
Hello, everybody.
On the air.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
I am really excited to do this podcast today. Particularly excited.
As am I.
Really?
Yeah, I really look forward to these chats that we have.
It's the only time we talk anymore.
Well, yeah, it seems to be.
Mm-hmm. Except for those calls that we talked about checking in.
I mean the checking in calls, but that's not really talking.
Mm-mm. You just call and say, I'm just checking in, and you don't say anything else.
I just sit there and
you just
listen.
Wait.
That's called listening. It's
active listening.
Practicing my listening.
It's good listening, active listening.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say to everybody, yes, some people have been making comments, and special thanks for that. We're really glad to hear people are having responses or feelings about what we're doing. It's
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Yeah, it is very nice. It makes it kind of validates
our sense of self, validates our existence.
It gives us a very good.
Otherwise, we don't really have any reason to live.
Yeah.
Oh, except our children, our families.
Yeah, so if you really care, please go to iTunes and give it. We don't have any reviews there yet.
We don't have any iTunes reviews?
No.
So how far under Adam Carolla's podcast would you say we are?
Oh, we're way
really?
under Adam Carolla's, I think.
Like, could we come in like 9th most popular, or?
I haven't even seen ourselves show up on the charts at all.
Really?
But of course,
that's odd.
You know, we've discussed this, and we're not in it for the fame. Are we?
No.
There we go. So
no,
we don't actually even care.
No, we're in it for the therapy.
Yes.
But we want to just, you mentioned this last time that after the podcast was done, that we should tell them our Twitter handles.
Well, yeah, we definitely should have our Twitter handles.
I am at the Lab Coat Guy, TheLabCoatGuy, at the Lab Coat Guy. So if you go to Twitter and you follow me, I can guarantee a good time. I'm like that girl in high school that you knew if you asked her out, she would be a fun girl, right? You'd have a nice date.
Absolutely.
You'd go for a movie. You'd maybe have a cup of tea, eat a square, a brownie of some. Hey, wait a minute. That sounds like I'm saying pop brownies, doesn't it? But that's not what I mean. You know that I don't
definitely, you definitely use the Twitter way more than I do.
I use Twitter and Facebook to make comments that I think. So that's things that strike me, things that in my daily life, they hit me. And the other day, somebody said to me, how do you think of that stuff? And I thought, doesn't everybody think of this stuff? And she said, nobody thinks of this stuff but you. That's right. That's me, at the Lab Coat Guy. Why in italics, I wonder?
I have no idea. You know, I'm doing this very, very fast.
On the fly. It's on the fly.
So.
And what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is...
I like the sparkles. That is really cool? Classy.
Ladies and gentlemen, just in case, there we go.
If only my Twitter handle was Tinkerbell. That would be way cooler.
Why don't you just talk for 2 more seconds?
You want me to say some more stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I bet you that your handle is Hustle Talk, at Hustle Talk.
Yep.
Yeah. Good guess. I don't even follow you. How mean is that?
Is that, well, that's
do you follow me?
And there's another one that we should talk about.
At FauxPop?
Yeah, at FauxPop.
But
TV.
We don't, at FauxPop TV.
Yeah, FauxPop TV.
So we have at the Lab Coat Guy.
At the Lab Coat Guy.
That's beautiful. Sparkles again. I feel sparkly and just wait, isn't that the vampires in Twilight that are sparkly?
And we have
at Hustle Talk. That's a good one. That's a good Twitter handle.
Yeah, and I'm going to start using that more.
One.
I actually Twittered one last night.
Really? What was it?
It was, let me just try to remember.
Are we going to cut this part out, how it takes so long for you to find stuff?
No.
Should we do a podcast where we just read our Twitters?
There's no editing. Well, your Twitters are brilliant. I have to admit.
Come on.
Well, why don't you read
How much smoke can you blow up?
Let's start that way. You read one of yours, then I'll read.
So it's like a fight.
Twitter fight. No, it's not a fight.
Twitter fight.
Okay.
Okay, Twitter fight. You ready? Here it comes. I'll just read a random one. Ladies and gentlemen, this might be the first Twitter fight that's ever been done on a podcast. Okay, go.
You go first.
This is my tweet from this morning at about 8 o'clock or 7:30. Mm-hmm. I think the most difficult part of a person to eat would be the face. I bet you have to cover it with a lot of sauce.
That's good. I like it.
That would be difficult.
And if you follow the lab coat guy, which I encourage y'all to do,
I encourage people.
He's just nonstop with these kind of witty, what I would call witty and well thought out little phrases.
I think what happens is I have a pervasive mind, and I'm always like spinning these problems in my head.
I mean, the funniest one that I read this morning was has a deaf performer ever been caught hand syncing?
Yeah.
Like, that's brilliant to me. Like, that's actually genius.
Well, that's the kind of genius that you can get from me right there.
So I encourage you all to follow the lab coat guy.
I have a lot of questions about life, and they come up in my Twitter feed.
They do.
So
they're very, very good.
I'm tweeting out my questions.
Now, the hustle talk, besides,
what is
up
yours?
to this point, really all I've used Twitter for is to say, hey, there's a new podcast
yeah, of course.
on blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
But you have more to say
11
now.
hours ago, I was just sitting there and this thought struck me, and I thought, I'm going to use Twitter now as a place to do an ongoing conversation with myself.
Yeah, well,
And
sure.
if you want to follow along. So
Yeah.
11 hours ago, when you were saying the thing about syncing and clapping,
hand syncing.
I was saying, my mind says, how do you reconcile the spirit? Then my heart pipes up and says, how do you reconcile breathing? It's the same.
I think there's a huge difference between you and me. Once again.
So if you want more like that, folks, it's at Hustle Talk.
You know how someone says that two people are very different?
Yeah.
Those two people that are the most different of all the people that there are you and me.
Well, I don't know.
If I was a black woman, blind, a lesbian, in a wheelchair, who was adopted,
Right.
and an only child, I would be no less more different than I am from you now.
No less, more different.
Yeah. I am so different from you.
See, but I would be like, but there's some, I would find a place where we had common ground.
It would be where we were standing, because other than that, I don't think there is any.
Well,
I have never thought of the war between I don't even remember, my spirit and my heart and my thoughts.
And here's the thing, even I don't know what that means. I mean, it was just this thought that went through my head, and it was like, almost like, how, well, the gist of it, I think, is something to the effect that, like, you have your analytical mind that says,
That's the only one I have.
says a certain thing.
Right.
And it was like this thought of, how do I reconcile my spirit with...
What is your spirit? What does that even mean?
That's to be defined as...
Well, then how do you know you have it?
Well, I would define the spirit maybe not necessarily as a thing per se. That's definitely still, the verdict's still out on that, whether it's an actual measurable entity or anything like that. But there's something, what I call the spirit is just that deeper part of yourself that from time to time surfaces, and it's almost like it's instinct and intuition, and it gives you guidance and information that
I don't have that part.
isn't going on in your analytical mind.
I don't have that part.
And maybe everybody has it. I don't know.
Except me, I don't have that part. Listen, I wish I had it. I wish that I would have a spirit, and it would soar when I would be in the dolphin pool or something, and be like, oh, my spirit is rejuvenated by touching the dolphin. But really what happens is I'm thinking, dolphins feel like vinyl. And they do. They feel like the bottom of a kid's swimming pool.
Right.
And then I kissed the dolphin, and I thought, didn't taste like fish. I didn't tongue the dolphin, though. I just kissed its... what was it called? Rostrum. I kissed it on the rostrum.
Interesting. That sounds kind of dirty.
It's not dirty. Huh. You can kiss a rostrum without any concern. What do you want to go in with the topic then today?
Yeah. That
was this filler up to now?
It was definitely filler for the first 8 minutes, but I think it's important to get our Twitter handles out there. We'd love to get some more followers,
folks. We have some of the most important filler that there is.
And if you want to just follow us both, it's that one
at FauxPop.tv.
Yeah.
Does that captures our both our feeds?
It actually right now it only captures yours because mine up till now have not been that
but now you're starting to really consider your spirit and your
well
intellect.
I'm thinking I'm gonna start just if I have a thought I'll throw it out there just like the Hustle video blog on FauxPop site.
The well-known Hustle video blog.
Like if you can watch those if you want. It's on the FauxPop website. They make absolutely no sense.
I think you have to start forcing yourself to have things to say, and that's good exercise for your brain.
Well, that's what I mean. So, and to try to, I think, catalog some of the journey. I think the podcasts are kind of like that as well. Like our conversations, the conversations I'm having with other people. It's kind of this way of taking snapshots of things you're thinking about.
How my brain works is this, that when you say catalog, all I'm wondering is, are there horse logs? You know what I mean?
Oh, there's a Twitter post.
That's the kind of thing that goes through my head 99% of the time. Somebody once said to me, what is in your head when you're just walking around? And I tried to categorize it, like I tried to explain it. But in my head, it's as like there are radio stations all tuned to different channels and they're all going at the same time.
Right.
And I don't seem to have any control over choosing the stations sometimes. It's just like different stations are coming up and down. And one of those stations might be like, if you say catalog, then I'm pervasive and I'm going catalog, horse log, pig log, all the barnyard animals. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking that everyone must be thinking that. Like how many times must someone have thought catalog? Sure.
And then, yeah.
And then I start thinking about other people thinking about things.
Right.
And then
that kind of sounds to me like the spirit.
Exactly.
Exactly. Right.
That is exactly what the spirit is.
What you're defining there is exactly that, though. It's a way your brain works that you think is the same as everybody else's.
Well, it's just analytical thinking. You're analyzing language.
Right. But that's how you're hypersensitive to that.
I am definitely hypervigilant.
And I'm hypersensitive to other things. Like certain things move me a certain way. And maybe
remember, what movie made you cry so hard?
It was Hereafter this week or last week.
Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
I could talk about that.
Because you know what subject we can go into?
Sure. You're going to ask the questions.
I want to talk about why I don't seem to have any spiritual thoughts and why you do. Hustle versus lob. Go.
Why? Well, part of obviously.
Let's back up.
Okay.
When did you first start having these spiritual thoughts?
Well, I think that obviously my upbringing had a huge part in shaping that, or at least being a catalyst to creating an environment where I would explore that just naturally, because that's my dad being a preacher. I was in church probably sometimes three or four times a week, because my dad was a traveling preacher too. So it wasn't just that he was doing the Sunday thing.
Did they call other ones stationary preachers?
Yeah.
Or static preachers?
Static preachers.
And of course, the other thing I'm thinking is downbringing. Do we ever have downbringing?
Yeah.
You talked about your upbringing.
Well.
Or downtaking.
Maybe I think we have our upbringing and then we spend the rest of our lives downbringing.
Or downtaking. So you kind of, this thing that you are always thinking, listen, I don't want people to be scared that we're going to have a spiritual conversation because, and if that makes people feel threatened, that's not what we're doing.
Oh gosh, no. And
because I'm not going to have some great revelation here, believe me.
And nor will I. I mean, this is just.
But I'm curious. You always, doesn't matter what the subject is, you'll always turn it into something like a Mark Hussey thing. And that's why it's funny. It's called Hustle Talk.
Yeah.
And it seems like to me that you have this agenda that's always running that has to do with this spiritual sort of thing.
Well, I think at an early age, I definitely saw some things that didn't fit into the normal context.
Tell me one of those things.
I saw things like, and my dad was like a charismatic type preacher. So there was a lot of similar to Pentecostal type churches. If some people are, some of you listeners might even go to those churches, but there's a lot of more demonstrative. It's not just sitting in the pew and standing up.
It's not like the United Church.
It's not like
I have a nice suit coat. Yeah. I'm sitting here and we're being quiet. And how long till we go?
So it was always very, very.
P.S. I'm not slamming United Church.
Oh gosh, no. I mean,
you do whatever makes you feel good. I'm happy for you.
And I'm definitely in the same boat. That's where we're the same.
That is true.
Absolutely. But definitely saw a lot of interesting things growing up. But
you need to tell one of those stories.
I know, I'm trying to think of one.
I can't believe you have to think of one.
Well, there's so many. And
how can there be so many when I have so none? That's what's frustrating.
I mean, things like, people being healed, laying on of hands.
This can't be real though.
What
was the most laying on of hands you saw?
I'll tell a story from my own perspective.
Okay.
I used to do a lot of speaking when I got to a certain age where.
Okay, wait a minute. How did you get into that? Why did you begin speaking? Like, how does this church work? Like, you grow up and someone would say, does anyone want to say something? And you just raise your hand. Actually, I do. And then
that's pretty much
that's a good guess.
One thing I have to hand it to my dad. He was very much that way. Like his whole thing was about encouraging other people to develop and share from their own hearts, right?
You go to church and you're sitting in church, and then he's saying, we're going to sing a couple songs, and then does anybody have anything to say? And then someone would just jump up and come up and say, I want to say some things here.
Yeah. And then that often would be a catalyst. And so I definitely grew up in an environment where things were rarely planned, in the sense of the topic of the sermon today is going to be this. It would be one thing leading to another, and that would be the experience of church. You know what I mean? So someone might get up and say something, which would be the catalyst for someone. Hey, I was thinking about that too. And of
course, when you say catalyst, I'm thinking horsist. Tell me this. How did you feel before you went to church? Did you feel like, I have to go to church?
I think when I was really young, but I remember distinctly, when you're a kid, you go to church, it's boring. And you fiddle around and you lay in the pew and
it's maybe not even when you're little.
And you go to the bathroom as many times as possible. In fact, this is a funny story. One time I can remember this. I was probably about 5 years old, and we're in church, and I kept saying to my mom, Mom, I want to go to the washroom. I have to go to the washroom, right? And this is really coming back to me where it was. It was in a place called New Sarum between Elmer and St. Thomas.
New Sarum sounds like a religious community.
It was in a public school auditorium, which most of our church type services were. They never were in like buildings.
An actual church.
It was like rent a hall or rent a stable. No,
exactly.
Or whatever. And
that's why it was a horsist.
I remember being 5 years old and saying to my mom, I need to go to the washroom. And of course, I just wanted to get out of there. And my mom kept saying no, which usually she would just say, oh yeah, go ahead.
But she knows your system.
She know like I've already gone to the washroom probably like 3 times. And she's saying no. And this probably shows a side of myself, what I'm about to say.
I think I already know what she's going to say.
You do know what it's about to say. So I thought, I'll show her.
Yeah.
And so after I worked it up, and then I just pissed my pants right there in the chair.
Of course you did.
I did.
Yes, you did.
I totally did that.
Yeah.
And of course, that didn't go over very well with my mom.
I hope she made you sorry. To be honest, I do hope that.
But it was like I was trying to prove this point. See, I really did have to go. It wasn't that I was trying to get out of church. I really had to go pee. Like, what a stupid thing to do.
I totally understand why you wanted to go to the bathroom. And here's what always bothered me about church. P.S. I'm not a fan of church. And one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of church is that I wasn't getting anything out of it, either as an adult or as a child. And I would feel like they're telling me something that I have a hard time, A, pinning to me in a way that's meaningful. And B, once you see the message, I think, okay, you gave me the message. Now you're just belaboring. It's
right.
We see in the first few lines what he's trying to say. He's trying to say we should be nice to other people when they're suffering, and we should give to the poor or whatever. Yeah. But it would be like this long story and then this reading, and it would all be like laying it on that.
Right.
I know everybody in the room knows. We already know what you're trying to say.
Right.
So you would want to say to him, why don't you just say, we should be nice to everyone, shouldn't we? And everybody go, yeah, we should. Okay, moving on.
And
that's what I feel.
And I have to say, I've never been... even now get bored in those kind of scenarios. Like I always want to be inspired. I want someone to challenge my thinking. I want, and I do like the spontaneity, of people just having something to say and hearing what they're going to say.
I totally am the opposite.
Right.
When somebody wants to say something, I always think, oh, here comes this guy. And people, I think by and large, by the way, pot calling the kettle black, by and large, people want to talk about themselves. So they'll go up and say, I am this and I am that, and my life is like this and my life is like that, and here's what I think and feel. And on some level, I think, okay, good for you, interesting. But on another level, I think, how is this good for us all? Bring it home, like somehow bring it around, do something.
I think being in an environment like I was every week, seeing a lot of different people, and a lot of times, a lot of people coming and going, I definitely developed that.
Constant church members, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, because a lot of times people would come to our church from the United, not necessarily, or whatever church, like just like as a different experience.
Just to give it a taste.
Like they would go to the United in the morning, come to ours at night. That kind of
They double duty it.
Double duty, double dip.
Wow.
You know, because they were curious, like because they were feeling like you felt, right? This is kind of boring. Like again,
I don't see myself in there. This is what they're thinking. Whereas
I don't fit in here, but I have some kind of spiritual longing or cry.
I didn't have that.
But there's a lot of people that do, right?
Right.
And they would come and explore. And then you'd get other people that were coming to do exactly what you said. I want to be the boss of this. And you know, I want to like put my
have my time.
Yeah, have my time.
Yeah.
I want to become the guy that everybody goes, "Oh, cool, look how cool and spiritual that guy is." Right?
Yeah, it's so common in university and high school that kids will do that. Look how
Right.
spiritual I am. I'm the most spiritualist guy.
Yeah.
And they go out into the praying area and they're all
Right.
out there praying and you feel peer pressure.
But
to
you
pray
could take
too.
it away from spirituality and say that in itself is a sign of immaturity. Like it's a sign of, we're insecure. We're insecure.
Yeah.
And so I think
It's also natural.
it's maybe natural, but I think it's something we have to also grow out of and find that security in ourselves, that I don't need to be seen or heard to feel any kind of security about who I am, right?
Coming from a guy at a podcast, though, that's the irony that we keep finding.
Of course. And maybe we haven't reconciled that yet, but
Partially-
maybe we never will.
There's a difference here. You're talking about people who are doing it to get some kind of bathing of goodness from everybody.
Yeah.
Whereas I think we're doing this maybe in an even more selfish way, because later you want to listen to yourself and maybe analyze yourself or think about what you're saying.
Even these kind of questions that you're asking, right? Because one thing about this podcast, it is that spontaneity. So that's why I enjoy it.
Right.
And you're asking me things that I probably don't think about hardly at all. And then you ask it and I start thinking about it. And then I listen to it back going, that's interesting.
Yeah, but you probably have this experience that I have, that you sometimes will listen to things you said and think, I don't think that.
Oh, yeah.
Like you just get caught up in talking about something and you get pulled into a thought you don't even have.
Absolutely. And that, I think, is something on any podcast, any preacher, any teacher, any politician, anybody that's in a position where they're putting their thoughts out there. They need to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
that
you're going to get pulled in.
You're going to get pulled in. And not only that, that next week I might be eating my words. Right. And
Exactly.
I don't think a lot of people are, in fact, with religion and spirituality, since we're on that topic, I think a lot of people get stuck in those worlds because they're not willing to eat their words. Because they said something last week and everybody went, oh, cool. And then they lay that as the foundation of their lives, as opposed to going deep down, they're going,
We've talked about this before. Bertrand Russell's line, I would never die for my beliefs because I might change my mind.
Exactly. That's a great line.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
If you're not knowing who Bertrand Russell was, he wrote, I think, the book about philosophy in Western culture. Anyway,
we're getting off the stories, and if you want to hear more thoughts like this, you can listen to the Shameless Hussy podcast.
Yeah, I shouldn't. I feel guilty now. Tell your story. Weird event. Go.
Anyway, I can think of a time when I was speaking up in a camp up north.
At a camp?
Yeah, like at a church camp. So you had all these people come, and they're there all week, and there's fun and frolicking, and
they're underslept, aren't they?
You're like
tired.
Now you're going swimming and canoeing and all that kind of
They're
stuff.
in kind of a group think.
And these are the kind of things that would happen. I remember out canoeing, right? And I would meditate.
I like how he's doing his hustler thing. And you're canoeing.
Yeah, I would go out and I would be canoeing or something like that. And I would be thinking, because I have to speak that night. And oftentimes I would get like a flash or a vision or whatever you want to call it of just something almost like the catalyst, like just say this word or these two words or whatever.
Well, what does that mean, you get a flash? Can you tell me what that means?
It's hard to define it. It's not like I'm seeing this screen or I'm seeing you.
Right.
But it's a picture in my mind that is as clear as that, or it's as it's not a visual thing, but it's like this knowing.
You realize this is hard for me to believe.
I understand.
And I don't think that you're lying, but I find this impossible to imagine.
But anyway, I could tell lots of stories like this where you have kind of this sense. So I go, and my thing was speaking back in those days, and it would be the same now if you asked me to come and speak at your church. I wouldn't prepare anything.
Right.
I would just walk in, and I may get something ahead of time, or I would wait till I stand up in front, and then I would get some direction of some kind.
Right.
And I would follow it. Anyway,
meaning from the people there.
Yeah, from the people, and you would, and then you would again be that catalyst type thing. One thing would lead to another, and blah blah blah. But in this particular instance, actually, I'm remembering another part of this. When I came back from canoeing, a lady came up to me and said, something very special is going to happen tonight, or something like that. Right, one of those kind of things.
This is the kind of stuff that drives me crazy.
I know. But anyway, long story short, I'll shorten it up. But here, so I go, and this is the first time this had happened to me. So imagine, I'm like maybe 15 years old, and I'm speaking to, maybe 50 people.
But why are you the speaker?
Because this isn't my first time speaking, but what about to happen is the first time it happened.
No, just wait. Why are you the speaker, though?
I'm the speaker because...
Why is a 15-year-old kid in a position where he is a known speaker?
Because I had grown up in that environment, and my dad obviously gave me room to express myself.
So is your dad at this thing as one of the leaders or something?
He wasn't at this one. No, I don't. He may have been. I'm getting it mixed up.
I just want to know, how did they buy in? Like, let's get a 15-year-old kid. There is no age where you are more confident in your brilliance than 15, but you are less brilliant than you have ever been.
And I may have my age wrong. Maybe I'm 16 or 17.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying.
But I'm definitely young.
And somehow people are saying, yeah, that's the speaker, and this makes total sense.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I get speaking, and then it was like, and this is how it would happen. It'd be like, you get into this zone, and it was like, when you're in that zone, you're very sure of yourself and confident. And it was like,
you're on a wavelength.
You're on this wavelength, and this thought is go and touch that person. And I remember going up to a person and getting within a foot, and they boom onto the ground. And
which can be explained through.
I know. I'm not trying to explain it.
Okay.
I'm just telling the story. And so this happened all the way around the room. And then I remember, the whole place is down on the floor.
Everybody is
pretty
down.
much. And you just walk by and they would fall down, right? And anyway, the end part of this was there was a young boy, probably 8 years old or so, maybe younger, in that range. I can't remember. And I remember saying to the people, I made a statement like this. I said, you guys, some of you people think that this is magic and that this is special and that this is like, like supernatural.
Classic hustle thinking coming up.
What just happened here, right? I said, I ain't anything special.
Did you say ain't?
I may have. I don't know. I'm not anything special. I'm no more special than this kid here. And I put my hand on the kid's head.
Yeah.
And the kid started, I wish I may even have this on tape somewhere. All of a sudden he just went like this, and he just began to speak things that an 8-year-old couldn't say. And I like he began to orate in a very profound, like philosophical way, like that. And then like the kid was almost like in a trance, type thing. So there's a story that happened. I probably could find it on video or audio somewhere that we could play. I wish I had it up, because it'd be pretty bizarre.
You have video of all these people dropping.
It's possible that I have. We do. I don't know. I'd have to dig.
That's crazy.
At least audio, probably. And anyway, that's just one of many, many stories. I could tell you story after story of those kind of things happening. And this is turning into a shameless hussy podcast.
It really is.
I need to pull them back. So that's just one story, and you're going, what the heck? That sounds nuts.
It sounds like Crazy Town.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't buy it. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're lying. I think it's like crowd crazy, right? Everybody gets crowd crazy. And then they get into a situation.
And I would agree. And I even addressed that in the part where everybody fell down, right? Because I see that on television too.
It's like hysteria.
It's hypnosis. I mean, I know how to hypnotize people. I know how that works, right? So there's a certain kind of expectation and all that kind of stuff. But the part of that whole thing, I can explain that away. But when I laid my hand on that kid and he began to say things that I wish I had, if I can find it, I'll pull it up for next podcast.
It's going to make me have the creeps.
Well, you'll go, how can that kid speak like that? Because he has no context. He has no, like he's just begin to say amazing things.
How come stuff like this?
And that's where, back to that text, that's what I go, well, what is that? The spirit or whatever, like, where is that coming from in that kid? Because it's not in
it's only in the kid and it's not in people like me.
Well, maybe there's something to be like a little child.
Come on.
I don't know, man. And at the same time,
you're skeptical, so it doesn't come to you. You can't see the ghost because that's one of my core thoughts.
Yeah, of course, and I don't really believe that, even though it may sound like.
But I've been told that before.
Yeah,
you're not seeing the ghost because you don't believe in the ghost. No, I don't believe in the ghost because I don't see them.
I think it's as simple as this. My brain's wired that way. I could never write the things that you write in Twitter or think that, it's no different, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Like it's the same thing. Like your mind's wired a certain way, probably because of somewhat just like mine, somewhat because of your upbringing. But then the other part is just how your brain is and your DNA is and how your genetics are.
I don't know.
I don't know.
My take on that is that people are not just what they're born to be. People make themselves into something.
Sure.
So part of why you think the way you think is because your parents exposed you to certain kinds of experiences and you believed a certain type of structure or reality. Mm-hmm. And things have to fit into your reality. You have to make them fit because that's how your reality is.
Sure.
So when you see something, you just put it into the place that you've already formed and it fits right in there nicely. Like when you have a cup, the cup's shape is different, but the water is still water.
Right.
So it's my shape of cup. When I'm experiencing certain things, I experience them a different way than you. Mm-hmm. That's what I keep thinking.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, actually.
So then I think if I was in that situation, I'd be thinking this is fake or the kid's fake. You know what I mean? I would be finding another way.
And Mark gave him a script like ahead of time. And
no, that's not what I would think.
But
let me give you an example. I used to tell ghost stories, and we've talked about this before, but you guys maybe don't know this. I used to get paid to tell ghost stories to audiences of teenagers.
Yeah.
And this was in the early 90s or I think in the mid 90s. Anyway, let's say 94. Yeah, 94, 95, in around there, 96. And I went to this one event and I realized that I could make everything scarier if I told them in advance what was going to happen. Because then it would happen.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not telling them lies. I'm telling them true stories. And they're true in the sense that these are things that happened, but I don't have an answer for what happened. Here's a scary event.
Sure.
And someone might say, oh, you heard coyotes. Oh, it was, a guy was trying to scare you or whatever. And, you know all those stories or you know a huge percentage of them. They have not necessarily any endings or anything. But I figured out that if I gave people warnings, the warning alone would be so powerful that I'd like watered the ground before I put the seeds in it, and the seeds were in fertile place.
Absolutely.
And I think that one of the things about church is that it is a well-watered ground, depending on the church people go to.
Sure.
So people come in saying, oh, there's some stuff going to happen here tonight. And that woman walked up to you and said, I think something special is going to happen here.
Absolutely.
And if I were you, I would have thought to myself, well, it is now.
Yeah.
Because you think it's going to happen.
Right.
So I would mess around with that. And I realized that you could create all kinds of self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yes.
Just by how you set people up. And so rather than see it as a spiritual thing, I saw it as a self-delusion that was so powerful because we wanted it so badly.
Sure.
And again, I'm not saying that your things weren't true or they aren't real.
In fact, that's part of my own search right now too, is to rightfully divide, like even then I was very aware of the power of my mind and the power to manipulate in a sense, like,
well, even the power of the minds of the people you're talking to.
That's right.
If you can harness that power, then you're really onto something.
Right. But what bothered me was how people did harness that power and took advantage of so many people. Like, and that's why I'm not in that world anymore, really. But
you're really, so the part that I would think would be the best part is the part that you didn't want.
Yeah, because it was like, there's no way. I don't know how you could go to sleep at night knowing.
Oh, like a baby. Like a baby.
I can't. And that's where maybe we're different, but I can't. Not with something like that. You know what I mean? Where people are putting their hope and their faith and a lot of times their money.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean?
That's a different issue. It's a different issue.
It's like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't be that guy. I know I could be that guy. I know.
Well, because you saw the
I know how
of
this
it, right?
works.
You saw all the starting of it.
But I can't be that guy. But
It's
in
too
the
bad,
process, long story short, in the process, there were things I saw along the way that didn't fit into this
My
explanation, you know? And that's where like I say on the other podcast, I won't use the word, but that's where that's where I want to say that's where I'm screwed. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm spoiled. It's like, I can't just walk away.
Oh, you can't fully detach from those old roots or whatever.
I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's still there's something.
It's also illegal. You would kill the baby.
Wow, this is turning into a pretty deep and heavy podcast.
I'm sorry, everybody.
No, it's
I
great.
feel bad.
It's great.
Well, it's just that
I enjoy these conversations.
let's picture this. Picture me growing up. I'm a little kid and I go to church. Let me tell you about my church experience.
I was just going to ask you.
I remember it would be Sunday morning and I would be frustrated that I would have to go to church. Probably because I want to watch Abbott and Costello or whatever. I want to watch TV, right? I just want to sit and be a fat little kid and have fun. And my mom would, and this is probably 1969, 1970. And my mom, so I'm 4, 5. My mom would say, you get your little outfit on. And then I don't want to wear this outfit. I just want to wear my bathing suit all day or whatever, pair of shorts or whatever I want to wear, right? And I get in these clothes that are uncomfortable. So right away, I'm uncomfortable because I'm in this gear that is not my usual clothing.
Yeah.
And then there's this scenario of my behavior, and people would put all these expectations. Now you got to be a good boy, and I want you to sit there. And so now I have 2 layers of discomfort. Yeah. And then we're going to sit and listen to this old guy, and he was probably 27, but to me, this old guy talk. And he's got this sonorous voice, so it's got this repetition, like, and you're trying to, guy, and then we have to stand up and sing a song, and the sound goes, and the whole thing has this bizarre feel to it. Like, why is it? Who's getting something out of this? And you're like a 4-year-old kid. Yeah. Just let me go outside and look for a bug or pick up a caterpillar or, play in mud or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I have to sit in here and the bench is hard and, my legs are itchy or sore and I'm wearing this little collared shirt and it's sticking my throat. Mm-hmm. And then they'd say, can we call all the children to the front? Right. Well, now everybody looks at you and you feel weird. Oh, everybody's looking at me. This is weird. And then he comes and talks to you in this exaggerated way. Do you know that Jesus loves the little children? And then we have to sing Jesus loves the little children. I don't want to sing in front of these people. And there'd be like 3 kids singing and I'd be sitting there going, you have to sing now. Come on. Yeah. And the whole thing had this artificial, frustrating feel. And meanwhile, your mom's giving you this tight look like, you better do what you're supposed to do. And my mom's not a hitter. She's not a mad person. She's a nice little lady. And she's probably 26 or 27 at this time. So she's a kid. And she just doesn't want to be embarrassed in front of these people. Right. And the whole thing it feels negative. Like, Mom's worried about being embarrassed. Mom's worried about my behavior. Mom's not thinking about spirituality. You know what I mean? She's thinking about something else. So then we go down to this room, and in the room there are wooden chairs, and everything's wooden and paneled, and the floors go when you walk, and everything echoes. And we get out some crafts, and we're going to make a donkey or a palm frond or something like that. And I remember one day there's this poor young girl, and she's talking about to us. She's our leader or Sunday school teacher, I guess. And she's talking about, do we know what's coming, that Christmas is coming? Right. And she says, and we all know what that means. And I said, it means presents. And she said, no. And she wanted to give me the instruction about what Christmas really meant. Right. But to a little dumb kid like me, Christmas really means presents, right? Like that's, and I'm not saying that because I'm greedy and selfish, although I am. I'm just saying what's in the cultural currency around me. Right. Right. And it's exciting. And rather than work with that excitement and try and build whatever message she wants to build, she's basically telling me, hey, what you're thinking is wrong. Santa's wrong. That's not the message of Christmas. Well, guess what? It is the message of Christmas. Look around you, woman.
Absolutely.
And I feel I'm frustrated. And she said, no, it's about Jesus. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? We see Jesus here, but we don't see Jesus other places. You don't see Jesus at the store. You don't see Jesus around the Christmas tree.
Right.
You don't see Jesus on the Eaton's catalog or the Simpson Sears catalog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no currency for this message that she was giving me. Well, there was a huge currency of Santa Claus.
Right.
So I was frustrated, and then I was made to feel guilty for accepting the cultural currency. So here's another layer of frustration. Remember, Mark, I'm 5.
Yeah.
And I'm already feeling like I'm cynical and jaded and frustrated. But what a message.
Right. And yeah. Hey man, I think everybody at that age, because I definitely felt the same way.
And I'm not saying that church is bad, because I don't think it is. I think people go to church and they have things happen that are important to them, and that's great.
That's right.
But my frustration was the message is not being given to me as a kid in a way that can give me enough meaning for me to have something in it.
That's right. It's more for the parents, or I think anyway, like the whole thing. And wasn't that cute?
Well, I felt like it was for grandmas and grandpas.
Yeah,
church was for my grandma.
Like look at Randy up there. It's so cute.
Oh, Randy. What a nightmare. And then you know what? Afterwards, and to this day, I probably enjoyed this. Maybe you'd have a little snack or sit at some tables and you're with your friends or family, or you know what I mean? And then everybody's relaxed and church is over, and sometimes they'd have a little social lunch or whatever. You have a sandwich, you sit on your grandma's knee. And I enjoyed that part, the social time after. And I would always think, why can't this be what we do? Like, we come here, and instead of that other stuff happen, why don't we just come down into the basement and sit at these tables and have cups of tea and talk? And, then this minister would circulate around and say, and how are you? Did you have a good week? And all this. That seemed better.
So I wonder, like what you're saying there, did you feel the same way in school? You know, like
I did.
Yeah. So what you're talking about really, and what we're both talking about really, which gets to the bigger question, like of our DNA and how our minds work, has more to do with us as individuals, do you think?
No, I think here's the thing about school. School I found frustrating too, but the subject matter seemed to be different times. Mm-hmm. Whereas the subject matter in Sunday school always came to the same thing over and over
that's
again.
A good point.
And it never changed. And I realized this message is never going to be different. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I don't like math or history, I'm going to get English, or I'm going to whatever.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And the variations were important for me as a child. Yeah. And sure enough, you're right that I did not like to sit and have Mrs. So-and-so tell me this and tell me that without me being able to do something about it. Mm-hmm. But in church, it was so much more powerful.
And I agree with you. It's always the same story, different ways of telling the same story.
Yeah. And maybe when you're an older person and you can think about how it interacts. And when I say interacts, I mean how the religious feelings interact in your life, or in the messages that you're getting from the news or whatever, and you can layer everything together correctly. But for a child, it was so much more difficult. Mm-hmm. And so, again, I'm not slamming church and spirituality, but for me, I just never had that developed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because my parents grew me or created an environment for me to become this way. They tried their best to get me into whatever. I just couldn't get in there.
Yeah. And that, I can relate to that.
And maybe your church experience was different. Now, let me jump in. Mm-hmm. Years later, a friend of mine, Raj, I know you'll never listen to this, so I can say this. Raj had a girl that he liked, and I liked her too. And I think we were both interested in this girl. And she was in the Pentecostal church, and she invited us to a Wednesday night, I think, or one night a session, or whatever you want to call it, service rather. And I said I wasn't so sure I wanted to go, because I have this negative view, or whatever. And it's not negative that I think religion is bad. Again, I just can't stress enough.
Yeah,
you do what you like, and I support that, and I would actually defend your right to believe things and do things.
Absolutely.
So we went to this church, and I was terrified. Like, I literally was frightened. Mm-hmm. People were very welcoming, and that was nice, but they said, they singled us out and said, we have some guests here today. We have some new people here. And everybody turned and looked at us, and I didn't feel comfortable with, I don't, listen, I'm just here, and I'm not, now I feel pressured. Do I have to come back? You'll be back on Sunday, and we're having another meeting. Mm-hmm. And then people behind me started to do this
Sure.
and rocking, and it just got really raucous and intense. And then they said, people who had something or did something, come to the front. And when they had this feeling, and then someone said, come on, let's go to the front. And I said, I can't go to the front. I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah, you've already done your drugs.
I'm going to tell you something that this is true, and you may not believe me. I literally was so scared that my eyes were wet with fear. Like when I get super scared, I get an automatic response that my eyes kind of tear up a bit. And I had that.
Yeah.
I was so scared. It sounded like the equivalent of like The Exorcist, like, we're in here, Damien's in here, all those voices. That's what it felt like.
And then, of course, someone's going to be looking at your fear and going, that's just God's conviction working all over. You know what I mean?
And by the way, the guy was leaning forward, so his head was like 3 inches from the back of my head. Yeah. And I had to lean forward, and I was thinking, like, are you doing this for me? Are you? Like, it was so intense. And again, people who go there and it's meaningful to them, that's great. I couldn't latch on. It was so difficult. I understand that. Look at you yawning because you're so bored with my story.
No, I'm not bored with this story. It's a long day. But I mean, that kind of...
And that's your church, right?
Well, yes and no.
Kind of thing.
I mean, it was that kind of thing as far as it being demonstrative that way. But I have to say, in my, kudos to my dad, he never ever had a judgmental message or you know what I mean? Like, we were always... And I think that's why people came, too, because in other situations like what you're talking about, there was always this sense, we got new people. We're going to gather them into the church. We're going to get them saved and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of peer pressure.
And I can't say as I ever felt that way, ever, where I had this mandate that I had to save people or make them become Christians, or that message. Even though I know it was there, it was never pushed. It was always more about,
here's this, do what you want, choose your own thoughts.
Yeah, find your way. It's inside. Basically, it was the gist of my dad's messages, which is funny enough. What it stuck with me is, what's inside of you that is important. And my dad. And I keep talking to him as if he's not here. He's still alive and well, doing great.
But he's not here with us.
He's not here with us.
He?
And he still is this way. But he's very much about encouraging people to release their gifts that are inside of it, their abilities.
Even that wording makes me feel uncomfortable.
I know that. That's why I was trying to find a better word. But that's, those of you that in that world know exactly what I'm talking about.
Here's the thing. I feel bad now for having this conversation. I feel guilty because I feel like I've offended people who are Pentecostal when I don't. I'm only talking about me. Yeah, well, and so I'm not judging other people, but it sounds like I am.
Nah,
and it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Again, people think that. Please, don't think that. Because
it's just, I'm not saying that what happens in those churches is bad. I'm saying that I couldn't find a hook
for you
for myself.
Yeah.
And as I said at the start of this, I bet you the deficit's in me. I'm lacking something and it's my fault. You know what I mean? And when I would see, when I've seen video of those black churches, and I don't want to make it into a race thing, but with the powerful music and the powerful message, and I feel like, whoa, that could suck you up. Like you could feel like, and there's the people in those churches, they've had a history of oppression and misery heaped on them by a culture on top of them. And I can feel like the power of that being an underclass for so long and feeling like this is where we release that and we feel the value of that. Absolutely. I can feel myself being pulled into that. And I could feel myself hearing those old powerful songs and like gospel music is rock and roll in a way.
Oh yeah.
And you feel that strength in that and a lot of that deep well of pain and suffering. And I can understand why that would make me then feel those things. But just the way I started out, I couldn't have that. I wasn't experiencing it on that level. Yeah. And I still haven't. Now, to say that I would think that other people, aren't getting it is not true. And I support, as I say, Pentecostal, evangelical, whatever your word is.
Here's the thing though, man. Like that kind of thing is so relative to you as a person. When I was talking, I could think the same thing. Oh, you're thinking I'm talking bad about United churches and traditional church. You know what I mean? Like we're not, we're just talking about ourselves. and our experiences with those things.
Yeah.
You know, and whether we fit into it or not, that's why there's so many churches, why there's so many religions and so many, you know,
it's just such such a tenuous subject. It makes people so angry.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like obviously people kill each other over it all the time, but it's more like people get offended if you don't believe what they believe. They feel like you're threatening them in some way. But you know, I don't care if people came up and said, hey, your lack of ability to engage in religion, that threatens me. I'd say, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't feel, I'd say, I'm sorry. Like, I don't see why there's a negative. Or if someone said, you know, like, I don't have a platform to stand on, so it's hard for me to see a platform be so valuable to so many other people in a way that they have to defend something that's not being attacked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you're being actually much kinder than I would be in that situation.
Well, I've been cruel in the past when I was young and not as, you know,
is my thing
satisfied.
My thing to that, and that's always to myself, is if I'm threatened by something, then there's something wrong with me. You know what I mean? Like if then I'm not secure. Like if I believe something,
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm trying to say? If I really believe something, there's nothing that can threaten it.
And that's probably true for all kinds of people.
That's right.
But they want to defend. It's like if I like a band and you say that band is terrible,
sure.
I say, hey, what's wrong with you? You're hurting my band's feelings.
Right.
And as the defender of my band and the representative of them, I have hurt feelings now too.
Right.
And that whole team mentality is,
but doesn't that still come back to, that's where your security is? It's in that band, as opposed to finding that within yourself. Like, I mean,
I know this is a very you thing.
I know. It's just, for me, it's just like, well, big deal. Right. If you hurt the band's feeling, what does that have to do with you?
But think about you growing up and maybe being in a minority based on the strength of your religion and feeling under attack from the secular world, from everybody outside, and going to school with your shield and your armor. Right?
I'm not saying I've never felt that way.
And you say, I'm confident in my religion, partially because you have to say that because you feel like people are sinners and whatever around you.
Yeah, like my religion was someone else's punk rock. You know what I mean? Like,
you're making it into a rebellion.
I understand that. Yeah.
Whereas me, I don't think I've ever had a strong belief that I've carried around about anything.
Right.
Like, and I don't say that as that there's something wrong with other stuff. It's me. The only thing that I know that I believe fully is, like, you know, family and friends and just the things around me that are important that, you know.
Well, you know, to bring this full circle, the funny thing about that is, I mean, to take a Christian perspective.
Here we go.
But what Jesus said, how
dare you?
I know, but here's the thing. He said since we're talking about religion, he said pure religion is this: family, friends, you know, being good to people, all that kind of stuff.
Or let's say that's the things in your daily experience.
That's what I mean, but that's what it boils down to. And that's the pure religion.
I'm not sure it boils down to that for everybody.
No, it doesn't, but maybe that is the gist of it.
You know, I feel like, how did you bring that around? I feel like we've totally not done our jobs here today. You should call this Shameless Hussies.
Shameless Hussies episode 4.5.
Oh boy. I don't know. This kind of subject matter, you know, I don't like these conversations.
Well, you got the topic
I know,
going.
But I thought you'd tell me some of those creepy stories.
And I can tell way more stories if you like.
It's too late now. Look at the time.
It is too late. But
what I want to say to people is, what I want to say to the people at this time, what I want to say is, I don't like these conversations, and I just had one, and he'll back me up.
That's
whenever
true.
We've had them in the past.
Yeah.
I say, I don't want to do this again.
And this shows the hussy versus love, because I'll leave this conversation going, man, I'm so inspired.
And I will leave it and say, I can't believe we had this. I can't believe I went into this.
Yeah.
I can't believe, and I go home feeling sick, and I just think,
you ought not. I don't know why you do, because it's good dialogue regardless.
Yeah, but it's just
because I'm not trying to convince you. You're not trying to convince me.
For you and I, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But for the other people who are ever around or something, like, it becomes some issue that is more than I think it should be.
I'm with you 100%.
Like, I want it to be private. Go ahead and have your private thoughts. Please do.
Well, there's nothing private about a podcast.
That's the problem. We just had public thoughts about private stuff.
I don't know. I say you bring it all out. And
I'm tempted to cut. I'm tempted to not use this one.
Why not? I'm going to bring this right around and just like. So,
do you remember what the initial question was?
The initial question was to talk about my spirituality and
how come I don't have that,
and how you don't have that. But I'm going to end this podcast with saying, if you did have that and you did grow up that way with your aspirations to be funny and to be a comedian, you would probably be just like this guy.
Y'all remember that song in Sunday school? Oh, be careful, little feet.
Oh no.
Be careful, little feet, where you go. I hated that song.
This is a Christian comedian.
And my feet couldn't be careful. They were hyperactive. And I thought any second, boy, if my feet step out of line,
it's kind of what you're talking about.
he's going to squash me like a cockroach.
I actually thought the exact same thing when I was a little kid.
Up above is looking down. And you know what I found out after 46 years of trying to get to know him?
I
You know
didn't
why
do
he's
that.
watching everything we do? He loves us so much he can't take his eyes off of us.
Oh, come on. That's just on point. He's just on point. This is what bothers me. It's just hit stop for a second there.
I pause it. We don't need to watch
You know what bothers me about that? It's just he's saying the things that they want to hear.
Of course.
But
And that, my friend, is where we're the same, because I see.
I'm not criticizing him, but I don't like it. He went for the easy clap there.
Yes.
And everybody there knows that already.
Because I can say this. I will say it because I grew up in that world. What you just said, the easy clap, the easy note, the easy thing. One thing that always bothered me was that people could get away with things in that world. And people, as long as you tied a nice little bow around it and brought it back to Jesus and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you did that already in this podcast with me.
I know, but it's all part of the.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but I wasn't trying to make it that. That was just a joke, in a sense.
Joke that you meant.
No, I didn't. No, it's not true. But people would get away with, maybe he's not as funny as some other comedian or a musician.
No, he said some stuff. He said some stuff there that might have been good comedy or whatever. Yeah. But what I don't like about what we saw in that clip is that they just want to hear what they already know they want to hear. Like
that's the problem.
Just say what I want to hear. They're saying to him, and he's just doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what you want to hear. Yeah, we all know. So it's like going somewhere and getting the exact thing that you're
preaching to the choir all the time.
Well, I would even say it's stronger. It's learning the same lesson in school every day and then being happy because here's that same lesson. We know this lesson.
And again, not to be critical, but isn't that what religion is all about? Maintaining some sort of, I hate to use the word, but brainwashing and like to keep everybody thinking the same way, keep all the sheep
what
walking.
Is it for originally?
Not originally, no, because I think it's obviously been totally corrupted and compromised over the years, but religion has been used throughout the ages, to keep people all thinking the same thing.
Let me defend religion here.
Okay.
I think lots of things are used to keep people in line. Yeah. And whatever tool is handy will be the one.
Right.
The monetary system, religion, sex, race,
agreed,
whatever.
Yes.
People will use whatever tools are available. And that has nothing to do with religion or not religion. That's human beings.
I agree.
But just about that specific thing and about what frustrated me about that is the same thing that frustrated me as a kid. It's like the same lesson in school and the same test every day. And here's that test again. And everybody knows what to write down and we all write it down. And everybody goes, yeah, we got it 100% again.
Yeah.
Good for us. Yeah. And now let's go back to our daily lives. I don't know. It's just
so maybe the lesson to take away from this podcast.
He always wants to have a lesson.
I'm doing this for myself because that's what I get out of dialogue and conversations. How can I take that and make it, address myself with it? Is that maybe we should just take a step back and think about the things we believe. And
I just figured out why I don't like those conversations. Because you want to take a lesson and I just want entertainment out of it.
Right.
And I don't think we had any tonight for people or ourselves. We entertained you and me in a way, but I don't think we entertained anybody. Well, I'm always looking for that.
I think this topic is to be continued and we will try to not stray in further podcasts because I know you have some stories too of things that you can't explain.
Well, Gina said to me, you should do a separate Bush podcast and do it every week and have people in who've seen things or whatever.
That'd be good.
Anyway, listen, folks, I'm sorry about the entertainment value. If you found it interesting, that's a different issue. I know that the Hustle, he likes a good message. He likes to get some grist out of it and meaning. I'm not the guy that's looking for meaning. And I'm not saying that because I'm a shallow non-thinker. I'm saying that because I have enough meaning in my life that when that's a lie, because the podcasts I listen to are the podcasts that have meaning.
Right.
And those are the ones I prefer. I'm a hypocrite.
We're all looking for it on some level.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.